So how do you properly build off a revolutionary, critically acclaimed system seller? Do you make an add-on exclusive, take what you already did and make it rage-inducing, or do you reskin a promotional game that was released only in Japan? No, you take the best elements that people universally enjoyed, fully flesh them out, take all the criticisms to heart, and make a more expansive world with a more compelling narrative. And that's precisely what Super Mario Bros. 3 and Sonic the Hedgehog 2 are able to do. These games are fan favorites in their respective series, and personally, I love them. I've been playing Mario 3 since I was in diapers, and while I've only recently beaten Sonic 2, I had a really good time with that game too. But we live in no such world where it can be left at that. I gotta pin these two games against each other and find out definitively which one's better. Now, it's important to note the original games were packed in with pretty much every NES and Sega Genesis console, so each series had a pretty large install base of fans right out of the gate. But if the first one was essentially free, the second one needed to shake things up a good bit to both justify its own creation, as well as encourage people to pull their wallets back out and pay for something new. On the surface, it doesn't look like Sonic 2 does that, but the sales figures say otherwise, so the marketing must have done something right. Compared to their first game sales, Sonic 2 outperformed Mario 3, with right over half of consumers returning for more, while Mario 3 only pulled in around 43%. And with the Genesis selling about half as well as the NES, looking at the percentage of console owners who bought each game, about 25% bought Sonic 2 and 28% got Mario 3, so they performed almost symmetrically. But there was twice as long of a gap between these two games compared to these two, and as a result, this feels night and day from that first game, while this looks mostly the same. How are these games even for the same console? It's one of the biggest graphical leaps this series ever took, and it did so with one system. Where levels in the original game felt almost arcade-like in their layout, being a standard obstacle course with very few visual themings, this game turns them into actual worlds. And I don't mean with the world maps connecting all the levels. I mean with in-game environments that incorporate platforms much more naturally. You're not just jumping from block to block, in most cases. You're jumping from hills to bridges and running away from an angry sun in the middle of a desert storm. It is so much more engaging, and the slew of new power-ups keep you on your toes for the first couple worlds. The first game had just the Fire Flower, and here you get the Raccoon Tail, the full-blown Tanuki suit, the P-Wing, the Hammer suit, the boot, the frog suit, and I'm probably missing some, but they all bring a really unique feel that help in very different situations. It's awesome, and it's one of the strongest aspects of this game. The level designs themselves build on the more skill-based approach the first game establishes in all the best ways, laying out the obstacles in front of you and making you use your pure platforming skills and mastery of mechanics to reach the goal. But in my opinion, the first game didn't get more difficult for the right reasons. It rarely killed me with a tough jump. Instead, the levels got harder by incorporating more and more enemies, highlighted by the damn Hammer Bros. But this one has platforms that move, sink underwater, drop, and enemies you should use as platforms. Now, World 8 does ramp up the enemy and cannonball usage, but those bring less of an unpredictable element like the Hammer Bros brought, and still rely on you being able to carefully maneuver tight windows and jumps. And just like with the foundational games, this is a huge area that differentiates the two series. They're both by genre platformers, but classic Sonic levels are built more with memorization and replay value in mind. But where the original Sonic the Hedgehog slows things down a lot in levels like Marble and Labyrinth Zone to focus on explicit platforming, this game more naturally blends those sections with Sonic's innate speed. Slower platforming is sort of a punishment in this game. If you have a quick enough reaction time or knowledge of the level layout, you can mostly avoid these sections and just race for the finish line. It builds on that trial and error approach to levels without contradicting itself at every turn. The first game would tell the player that yes, going fast is good, then going fast just 2 minutes later would punish you. And even with the stage layouts completely memorized, the most optimal run can still involve waiting for all this shit. And here there's a lot less of that BS for returning players, because there's branching routes through pretty much every level almost all the time. If it's your first time playing, you're gonna miss out on some of the better paths and have to platform your way to the end, like the better half of the first game did. But you still frequently get a taste of speed with the increased use of spectacle sections. The first game had a few of these, but this one takes it to a whole new level, with these long straightaways and loop-de-loops that get you flying at top speed, which feel great, but are a bit less rewarding when they're just handed out. Going fast previously was an accomplishment. You had to sprint uninterrupted for a few seconds and build up to that top speed. But this game introduces boost pads, which take you from 0 to 60 instantly, and the spin dash, which can be used at any time and takes you right to full speed. These make speed a much more central and attainable part of the gameplay, and with levels that feed into it, you're getting way more of an adrenaline rush your first time through, and it acts as sort of bait to keep you coming back looking for even faster ways through levels. It's done really well, and is way more consistently quality than the original. There weren't any zones I absolutely despised. Yeah, not even Metropolis Zone. There's new starfish enemies and praying mantises that are super hard to avoid, and the placements can be flat out stupid, but after the f***ing nightmare of Labyrinth Zone and especially Scrap Rain, I expected worse and was pleasantly surprised. And where worlds in the first game were really distinct and visually creative, this game takes that to all new heights. Everything just pops in this game. Instead of the bland Green Hill Zone, you get the shiny new Emerald Hill, which perfectly sums it up. Mario 3 doesn't have nearly as much flair, but it's one of the most foundational 2D platformers, so it really doesn't need it. And that's an excuse for a lot of its modern shortcomings. It paved the way with something basic so everything else could branch out and build off of it. And that's valid, and will continue to be a theme as we compare these series further. But looking at it as a standalone game present day, it doesn't really help its case. Levels weren't designed with any kind of replay value in mind, despite having a world map that could make that so easy. And to make matters worse, if you want to replay a level again, you gotta restart the f***ing game, which is really dumb. But none of these really warrant that anyways. They're fun once, about as much fun as a Sonic 2 stage on its first run, and then you're done with it. Then on a second and third playthrough, they go completely opposite directions, with Sonic 2 feeling more natural and fun, and Mario 3 feeling more repetitive and stale. And that carries into the boss fights too. In Mario 3, they're all the exact same and almost mindless, jump on its head 3 times. But Sonic 2's bosses each incorporate its level gimmick in a really innovative way that you have to actually figure out. Besides the first one, it's just there to show you that, yep, Eggman's the bad guy. But there's flaws even beyond being more standard than Sonic. There's auto-scroll levels that ruin what should be a pretty fun stage, these puzzle castles with no direction that are a nightmare to maneuver even with internet, mandatory water levels, and a final boss that was very underwhelming. But Sonic 2's got its fair share of issues as well. The final boss is also not very good, you still get those jank deaths now and again with awful enemy placements, and your first run through a stage can be kinda infuriating here and there, but those don't hurt it nearly as much. Now, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention the biggest addition to Sonic 2, Miles Tails per Hour. Finally, Sonic gets a sidekick just as good, if not better, than Luigi, and unlike Mario 3, where player 1 and 2 take turns, Sonic 2 offers split-screen multiplayer for Sonic and Tails, which is something Mario wouldn't have until New Super Mario Bros. Wii in 2009. It's a good time here, and having him follow Sonic through levels even in single player makes him feel like a way more useful sidekick than Luigi's ever been. But that aside, I feel like Sonic 2's levels have almost gotten better with age, because the more you play, the better each level plays, and the same can't be said for Mario 3. A first playthrough is incredible, but present day, if you've played other 2D platformers, it feels very run-of-the-mill. And yes, context is important, but for the sake of these analysis videos, I want to know which one is more worth it today, and Sonic 2 offers a more unique feeling experience in a modern climate. Sonic had to stand out after Mario established the genre, so he was forced to shake things up, and that retrospectively helps him tremendously. Honestly, these two games are a lot closer than I initially thought. I have so much nostalgia for Mario 3, and it might be my favorite 2D Mario game, but I understand my personal bias, and after playing through Sonic 2, I enjoy a lot of what it brings to the table, and find it to be a really refined playthrough. Maybe it's because it's new to me, or maybe I'm feeling sympathetic towards Sonic, but I'm taking Sonic the Hedgehog 2 in this one, bringing our debate to an even 1-1. Next up, Super Mario World vs. Sonic 3 and Knuckles. If that video is already out, give it a watch there, and if not, check out one of the other videos on screen that I know you'll enjoy. And if I got this one wrong, or you have a different take on this, leave all your thoughts down in the comments. And please have a fantastic rest of your day. As always, I'll see you later.